Hello everyone, this is the first video on the Colombians Football Report. Now since this is my first video, I would like for you all to give me some constructive criticism. Please let me know if the audio sounds okay and if the video quality is okay, and hopefully over time I'll get better at this. For my first ever video, we're going to be going over my 2026 World Cup predictions. Now before we get started, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more future content. So the way I'm going to do these predictions is that I'm going to go by match day. So for example, we'll predict match day 1 of Group A, then match day 2 of Group B, and we'll keep going until we're done with match day 1, then we'll go to match day 2 and come back to Group A, then go to Group B, and then etc. etc. So now the first World Cup game is Mexico versus South Africa. Now, Mexico have been in pretty good form recently. Mexico has been unbeaten in the year 2026, and they've actually played some pretty good teams in this year. So it's actually a very impressive run of form for Mexico. Meanwhile, South Africa have been a bit weak as of late. They couldn't beat Panama in March. They also couldn't beat Nicaragua lately, and it's not very convincing form. I actually had a lot of excitement for South Africa. I thought it was going to be like an interesting team, and they still could be, but right now I'm not really convinced with them. And I think Mexico are easily going to win this first game. I would say the final score will be a 2-0 home win for Mexico. So now we move on to Korea versus Czechia. And Korea, they've been kind of inconsistent. Their manager is not really well liked by the Korean fans. Meanwhile, Czechia are on the high after qualifying for their first World Cup since 2006. And I just have a feeling that this is not a good matchup for Korea, especially since Czechia are a strong physical team with good defenders like Krejci. And I can just see Czechia getting a 1-0 win to start their World Cup campaign. We're moving on now to Group B, and I've seen people criticize this group, but I actually like this group. I think it has the potential to be an entertaining group, especially this first game, Canada Bosnia. I feel like this. I just have a feeling this game is gonna have a lot of goals in it, but due to the fact that Canada are playing at home, and I think the vast majority of their players have World Cup experience thanks to the last World Cup. I think they're just gonna win this game. It'll be a 3-2 scoreline. It'll be a fun game to watch. Bosnia obviously have Edin Dzeko, but besides him, it's a very young squad. Like barely any of these players have World Cup experience, so I think Canada will take that game. Meanwhile, the second game of match day 1 in Group B, Qatar versus Switzerland. I'm not gonna go too into depth with this one. I just think Switzerland are easily gonna win this game. I'm gonna say 3-0. Now we move on to Group C, and the first game of Group C is Brazil versus Morocco. Now that is gonna be an insane game. I'm so disappointed that the tickets are like thousands of dollars. Otherwise, I probably would have gone to this game. But Brazil, Morocco. Brazil recently struggled against Egypt, which is another North African side, and a much weaker one, with all respect to Egypt. Meanwhile, Morocco, I mean, everyone's going to be hate watching Morocco in this World Cup after what happened at the AFCON recently. So it will be a crazy game for sure on social media. I can already see it. Um, but I have a feeling this game is going to end in a draw. It's going to be an exciting draw. I'll say a 2-2 draw. I think Brazil will score 2 goals, but Morocco will bounce back both times. So it'll be 1-0 Brazil, then 1-1, then 2-1, then 2-2. It'll be a back and forth game. I can just see that happening. Now we move on to Haiti versus Scotland. And I think this is going to be my first shock prediction. It's kind of a shock. Maybe not too much of a shock, but I actually have a feeling this game will end in a draw. Because the thing with Scotland is they just kind of always mess up in the World Cup, and I'm not convinced by any of their attackers. I feel like they're all not very good. Che Adams and many other strikers are not really the best options. Meanwhile, Haiti are kind of like on the rise recently. They were pretty decent in their March friendlies, and they also recently beat New Zealand in like they beat New Zealand in June. So I feel like they have a bit of momentum, and I also feel like they might have the advantage with their home support or the fans being there. It's gonna feel like a home game because there's a lot of Haitians here in the United States. So I'll say it's gonna end in a 1-1 draw. Now we move on to Group D, and this is a very nice group. Anyone could finish first. Anyone could finish last. It's just a very tight group. But we have United States versus Paraguay. I feel like this is going to be an interesting game. The United States are not going to want to disappoint on home soil. Pulisic didn't have his best season for Milan, but he always performed for the United States. Meanwhile, Paraguay, we still don't know if Enciso is going to be okay for this game or if he's even going to play this World Cup at all. It's kind of a hard one to predict, but I have a feeling the United States will win this game. They will want to make sure that they perform well in their home opener, but it'll be a close game. It'll be 2-1. Meanwhile, we have Australia and Turkey. I really like this Turkey team. Like their attack is so good. This Turkey team has an insane attack. Like Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz, I feel like they're gonna rip it up at this World Cup. And Australia are a decent team. I feel like they're always like that type of team that's hard to beat. But this Turkey team is very good. And I feel like they're gonna have a lot of motivation at this World Cup because it's gonna be the first World Cup for a lot of young superstars. Because Turkey are that good, like they generally have young superstars already. So I'm gonna say Turkey will win this game, not by too much. It'll be 2-1. Also, this game was 2-1, not 2-0. I don't know why it said 2-0 there. Um, Now we move on to Group E. Brazil. I mean, not Brazil. Germany versus Curacao, and I'm seeing people say that it will end like 8-0. I don't think it will be that bad, but it definitely will be a battering. Curacao. I mean, they haven't been in the worst of form because against Scotland they actually played quite well until they got a red card, and then they easily won their second friendly. So they have a bit of momentum, but Germany is Germany, and they beat the United States recently. I feel like they're a team to watch out for, despite the fact that Carl and Gnabry are both injured. I'm gonna say they'll win this game 4-0. Now we have the Ivory Coast versus Ecuador, and I feel like this is gonna be a very tough game, but I don't know if it's gonna be a good game to watch for the neutrals because I feel like Ecuador they don't really produce anything in the attack. Their team is just defense. Meanwhile, Ivory Coast they have good attackers, but I also feel like they might struggle against the Ecuador defense. I feel like this could be the first 0-0 draw of the World Cup. And in all honesty, I'm actually gonna go with that result. I think it will be the first game to end with no goals at this World Cup. Now we're in Group F with the Netherlands, Japan. This will be a fun game to watch. But the thing with Japan, they're kind of struggling with injuries. Mitoma's not gonna play at this World Cup. Um, Endo, I don't know if he's fully fit yet. He might be, he might not be. I'm not sure. But the thing with Japan is that they're very well organized, and I think they actually have decent depth. And it's about time for Japan to really impress at a World Cup. And I feel like they're gonna get an opening day shock, or not an opening day, but the opening game shock. They will beat the Netherlands 2-1. The Netherlands don't really convince me that much. I don't see anything special about them, especially that Simmons is injured. He didn't have a good season with Tottenham, but he's still a big player for the Netherlands. So they're definitely gonna miss him. And they recently lost to Algeria. I just don't think it's a good sign for the Netherlands. Meanwhile, Sweden versus Tunisia. I mean, for me, Sweden shouldn't even be at this World Cup. I think they were terrible in the qualifiers, but they got bailed out because of the Nations League rule. And but the thing is with Tunisia, they're not really that good either. They recently lost 5-0 to Belgium. And I'm not convinced by Tunisia. I think Sweden will win this game quite easily, actually, 2-0. Now we go into Group G. Belgium versus Egypt. Now, I actually liked how Egypt played against Brazil. I think they were actually pretty decent. And they didn't even start Mo Salah that game. I feel like they're in good momentum going into this World Cup because they had a good AFCON as well. But Belgium are also in great form. I feel like they might be a World Cup dark horse. I know that's kind of like an unpopular opinion because I think everyone always says Belgium is a dark horse, but I feel like this year they really could actually be a dark horse because they have a lot of young players, and I feel like a lot of people have taken the attention off them compared to other years. So even though I think Egypt are a good team, I think that this will end in a win for Belgium. We'll say 2-0. Now Iran versus New Zealand. New Zealand is now everyone's second favorite team because of Tim Payne, but they don't really convince me. I mean, they lost 4-0 to Haiti recently. Like, that's a really bad sign. I know recently they only lost one goal to England recently, but I feel like still, like, that Haiti result is terrible. It's very bad look for them. I think Iran will win this game 2-1. I think New Zealand will score first, but Iran will turn it around. I think Iran are actually going to win this game. Now in Group H, we have España versus Cabo Verde. Now, Spain, they're going to be missing Yamal for like the first few games, I'm pretty sure. Meanwhile, Cabo Verde, they're going to try to pull off the shock. And it will be interesting to see if they can actually get a result. Spain recently drew to Iraq, but I mean, I still think that they're going to lock in the actual World Cup. I think there will be an easy 3-0 win for Spain. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia versus Uruguay. Uruguay do not convince me. Like, I feel like the players hate Bielsa, and I feel like Bielsa also kind of doesn't want to be there. It's not really a good situation, but they're definitely still good enough to beat Saudi Arabia even at 50%. I think it will be a narrow game though. Like, I think they might struggle a bit, but they'll get the goal eventually, and they'll win 1-0 against Saudi Arabia. Now we go to Group I. This is a fun group. I don't think there's any weak teams in this group. I'm just saying that right now. I don't think there's a single weak team in this group. We have France versus Senegal. And this will be a fun game to watch. Both teams have insane attack. France have Mbappe, Dembele, Doué, Olise. There's just so many players I could name. Cherky as well. Senegal have Mane, Jackson. They have a pretty good midfield. It's gonna be a very hard fought game, but I think France are gonna win. But it'll be an exciting game. It will end 3-2. There'll be 5 goals in that game. Now Norway versus Iraq. I I feel like Iraq are a pretty decent defensive team. They don't have like a lot of players playing in the top leagues, if at all. But they show heart and spirit. I was impressed by them with their recent draw against Spain. I feel like they did a great job in that game. Meanwhile, Norway, I feel like Norway, everyone's saying that they are the dark horse at this World Cup, but but that might be a lot of pressure for a team that hasn't been at a World Cup since 1998. But let's see what Norway can do at this World Cup. But I have a feeling that this first game will end in a shock 1-1 draw. Holland will score first, but then Iraq will score some late equalizer, probably from like a corner kick. Maybe Hussein will score, the striker from Iraq who's pretty good. Now we move on to Group J. This is the group of the A's because there's three teams whose names begin with the A. Argentina versus Algeria. I feel like Algeria, they have potential to do something at this World Cup. They have pretty good talent. But Argentina, they're the world champions. They're the type of team that even at playing at 50%, they could beat anyone like 2-0. I feel like this game will end 2-1. Argentina will score 2 goals in the first half, and they'll control the game. And Algeria will get a late consolation, but it won't be enough. Austria versus Jordan. I recently watched Jordan play because they played against my national team, Colombia, and they were decent at times. I feel like they have something going for them, but Austria, I feel like they could be the real dark horse of this World Cup. They have been in very good form, and they got a lot of dual nationals recently, like Venner from PSV, and another player who I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name, but I'll put his name on the screen right now. Uh, Ralph Ragnick is the coach. I feel like they have potential to do good things in the World Cup. I thought they're going to win 3-1. Jordan have a decent attack, so I think they'll score a goal. But Austria, I feel like they're a team to watch out for at this World Cup. Now we move on to Group K. Group K is an interesting group. I feel like there's no real weak teams in this group. And to start off, we have Portugal versus the DR Congo. The DR Congo are a decent defensive team, but they don't really have that much going forward. But their defense is good. They have players like Mbemba and Wan-Bissaka. They're pretty strong there, all things considered. Meanwhile, Portugal, I've not been super convinced with them lately. I feel like their recent game against Chile was not the best. They also tied against Mexico recently. I feel like Portugal is the type of team they could have a slow start to the World Cup, but eventually grow into it. But I just feel like that's the type of team Portugal are. They'll have a slow start to the World Cup, but they'll grow into it eventually. So for this game, I'll say they'll win 1-0. Their midfield will create something. I'll say Vitinha will score a banger from outside the box. Now we have Uzbekistan versus Colombia. Colombia is my national team, obviously. And the thing with Colombia is sometimes they can create something good, like they look like a team to watch out for, like a dangerous team. And then other times they look like a team with no ideas. And I don't know what to expect with Colombia. They could either make it super far and surprise everyone, or be one of the flops of the tournament. Hopefully, they can make it super far. We need Luis Diaz to have an insane World Cup. We need James Rodriguez to be fully fit. We need Suarez to play like he does for Sporting. And yeah, I think this game will end 2-0. Colombia will struggle a bit to score the first goal, but once they do, they'll control the game after that. I think that's what's gonna happen. They'll beat Uzbekistan 2-0 just like we beat Jordan 2-0 recently. Now we move on to Group L. England versus Croatia. I feel like these two teams always play against each other. And the thing with England, a lot of England fans are not happy with Thomas Tuchel recently because his World Cup squad was very questionable. He left out Trent, Wharton, Bowen got left out. Or did he? I don't remember actually. But he made a lot of questionable decisions. He took Jordan Henderson. It's the atmosphere in England. I don't think it's that good. I think there's a lot of tension going on there. I think Croatia is gonna use that to their advantage. I think they're gonna actually get a draw in this game. I think Croatia have very good players. Obviously, Luka Modric, he's still balling at 40 years old, and they have some pretty decent young talent too. So yeah, they're a team that will give England trouble in that first game, I reckon. And then we move on to Ghana, Panama. I think Ghana, they made the right decision firing their coach in March because with him they were gonna finish last in this group for sure. I'm confident. I was confident of that. But now they have Queiroz as a coach. I feel like he's a decent World Cup manager, and I think that's gonna help Ghana in this World Cup. So I think they're actually gonna have a good opening game. They will beat Panama 2-1. It won't be easy because Panama are no pushovers. They recently tied against Bosnia in a friendly as well. But I think Ghana, thanks to their new coach Queiroz, who has that World Cup experience, I think he will help them out at this World Cup, and he'll get the opening game win against Panama. So now we go back to Group A. Now we're in match day 2, and I'll go less into depth in match day 2 simply because I went far into depth already with match day 1. So with Czechia already having 3 points, I feel like they might calm things down a little bit. South Africa might give them some trouble, but I think they're still gonna get a decent result. I think they're gonna tie this game 1-1. And Mexico, they're gonna continue their good form. I think they're gonna win 2-0 again. They'll beat Korea 2-0 again. So now we move on to match day 2 in Group B. And here we have Switzerland versus Bosnia. Seeing that Bosnia lost the first game, according to my prediction, I think they're gonna try to go with all their strength to at least get a point in this game. So I'm gonna say it's gonna end 1-1. And Canada versus Qatar. I think Canada will easily win this game 3-1. Qatar will score. I would say their score the first goal. They will surprise Canada, but Canada will then get the job done. Now we move on to Group C, Scotland versus Morocco. Seeing that Scotland got a disappointing result according to my prediction on match day 1, I think they'll go all out to try to get a result here, but it'll end in a 1-1 draw. Meanwhile, Brazil versus Haiti. I like this Haitian side, but Brazil is Brazil. They'll win this game 3-0. Turkey versus Paraguay. I feel like Paraguay is not a good matchup for Turkey because they're a very physical, strong defensive team, and I feel like that could cause problems for Turkey's young attack. So I'm actually going to say that Paraguay win this game 1-0. Now for the United States Australia. I predict the United States will win the first game, but this United States team still has a lot of inconsistencies. And I think Australia will at least get one result in this World Cup. So I think this game will actually end in a 1-1 draw. Now we have Ecuador versus Curacao. And, Curacao, they're playing in their first World Cup. Obviously, they're going to want to shock the world, but it's Ecuador. This team has a very strong defense, a pretty good team. They're not that good in the attack, but even then, I still think they'll win this game 3-0. The same score that they beat Guatemala by a few days ago. Now Germany versus the Ivory Coast. I think the Ivory Coast could give Germany a lot of problems. I'm not too convinced with this German side, in all honesty. I feel like, especially since they have a lot of injuries, that could actually affect them a lot. So I'm actually going with a shock result here. I'm going to say that Germany loses game 2-1 to the Ivory Coast. Meanwhile, Group F, Tunisia versus Japan. Tunisia will score a goal from a set piece probably, but Japan will then take control and easily win this game. Meanwhile, the Netherlands versus Sweden. I don't rate this Dutch team that highly, in all honesty, but even then, I still think they have enough to beat Sweden at least. It won't be easy, but they'll beat them 2-1. Now, New Zealand versus Egypt. I can see Chris Wood scoring a goal in this game, but Mo Salah will show up for Egypt in this game and get them the 3 points. Now we have Belgium versus Iran. I think Belgium will easily win this game. I'll say they'll win 4-0 against Iran. Now Uruguay versus Cape Verde. I think Uruguay, again, they're the type of team that might struggle sometimes, but I still think they'll win this game, but it won't be a comfortable scoreline. Let's just say 2-0. Meanwhile, Spain versus Saudi Arabia. Spain will obviously win. I'll say a 3-0 win for Spain. Now here in Group I, Iraq versus Senegal. Senegal could definitely struggle a little bit versus Iraq, but in the end, I still think that Senegal will easily get the job done at the end. That I feel like Iraq will run out of gas eventually. Meanwhile, France versus Norway. I think this is a game where France might slip up because Norway, in my prediction, they tied the first game, so they're probably going to go all out to get a result in this game. And I'll say it ends in an exciting 3-all draw. Now we have Jordan versus Algeria. I also can see this being an exciting game. Both teams have pretty good attacking talent, but in the end, Algeria just have a little bit more quality than Jordan. So Algeria will win 2-3. And Argentina versus Austria. I can see Argentina actually suffer a shock draw in this game because I think this Austrian team is actually very good. Like they're a team to watch out for. Now we have Colombia versus the DR Congo. The DR Congo is the type of team that could make Colombia struggle. They're very good defensively. They're organized. That's their strong point. But in the attack, they're not that good. So I can see Colombia struggling to score, but in the end, they will get a 1-0 victory. Probably in a goal in the second half of the second half. I can see that happening. And Portugal versus Uzbekistan. Like I said earlier, I feel like Portugal is the type of team that might start slow at tournaments. And I'm going to continue that trend here. I think they might suffer a shock draw against Uzbekistan. It'll end 1-1. Here in match day 2 of Group L, Panama versus Croatia. I think Panama will go all out in this game because in their first game, I had them losing to Ghana. So they know that they need a result in this game to keep their qualification hopes alive. So I'll say that it'll end 1-1, but yeah, they won't be able to win this game because Croatia just have too much quality. And England versus Ghana, I think this is where England will get their first World Cup win. A comfortable 2-0 win. Now we go back to Group A, where now we're in the final match day. And for Czechia versus Mexico, I think Mexico will be comfortable because they will have already secured qualification to the next round. So I can see this ending in a 0-0 draw. Meanwhile, South Africa and Korea, I think both teams are going to go at each other because they both need to win this game to keep their World Cup dreams alive. And I can see it ending 3-all. But in the end, that result will eliminate both teams. Here in Group B, Switzerland versus Canada. Even though Canada are a good team, I still think Switzerland will win this game 2-1. I think they're just a little bit better than Canada, even though Canada has a home advantage. Bosnia versus Qatar. Bosnia, they'll go at Qatar, and I think they'll easily beat them 4-1 to secure qualification to the next round as one of the best third place teams. Now we have Scotland versus Brazil. Scotland are going to try to get a result here to keep their World Cup dreams alive. I think they'll score from a set piece, but in the end, Brazil will still win because they just have too much quality compared to Scotland. And here, Morocco versus Haiti. I think Morocco will easily win this game 4-1. Turkey versus the United States. I feel like this could be a very end-to-end game. Both teams have a lot of attacking talent. And I think both teams are just going to go at each other. And it's going to end in a exciting 2-0 draw. Meanwhile, Paraguay versus Australia will be the exact opposite. It will be a very cagey game, I reckon. It'll it'll be a very hard fought game with a lot of tackles and pushing. But in the end, I think Paraguay just have a little bit more quality and that they'll win this game 1-0. Now we move on to Ecuador versus Germany. And Ecuador's favorite result is 0-0. So I'm just going to say it's going to end 0-0 once again. Meanwhile, here, Curacao versus the Ivory Coast. I can see Curacao actually scoring 2 goals to make their people proud. But in the end, Ivory Coast have too much quality and they'll still win this game 4-2. In match day 3 of Group F, we have Tunisia versus the Netherlands. And I'll say the Netherlands will easily win this game 2-0. I just don't rate Tunisia at all. Even though I don't think the Netherlands are that good, they should still get the job done easily against this Tunisia side. Meanwhile, Japan versus Sweden. I think Japan will win once again. It will end in a 2-1 result, I reckon. Now, New Zealand versus Belgium. Due to the fact that by this stage, I already have Belgium qualifying, I think that they'll probably rotate for this game. So as a result, New Zealand might actually get a draw here. But it won't change much because Belgium are still going to finish top and New Zealand are still going to finish bottom. Meanwhile, Egypt versus Iran. This game will decide who qualifies and who gets eliminated because based off the goal difference for both teams, I think that if one of these teams finishes third place, they're going to get eliminated. I can just see that happening. But Egypt, I think they just have a little bit more quality than Iran, especially with players like Salah and Marmoush. Now we move on to Group H. Uruguay versus Spain should be an exciting game, but Spain, they're definitely the better team. I'll say that they'll win 2-4. And Cabo Verde versus Saudi Arabia, both teams are gonna go at each other to try to get a result to get to the next round. But in the end, I think they'll tie 3-3, and that will eliminate both teams from the tournament. Now Iraq versus France. I've been talking good about Iraq throughout this video, but France are France. They're on another level. And I think they're going to win easily 3-0. And Senegal versus Norway. I could see this being an exciting game. I think it will end 2-2. And let's see if those 3 draws will be enough for Norway to get through. It should be enough, I reckon. Meanwhile, Jordan are going to face Argentina on that same match day. And Argentina, for me, will easily win this game 3-0. And Algeria versus Austria is a game with a lot of history. They had a controversy in the 1982 World Cup. So this will be a very hard-fought game. And I think it will end 2-2. I think both teams will just go at each other. It will be a very intense game. Now we have Group K, Colombia versus Portugal. They're playing this in Miami. And I feel like this is going to be an exciting game to watch. I think both teams have their weaknesses, but both teams have their strengths that really make them fun to watch. And I can see this ending in a 2-2 draw, which will be a good result for Colombia. All things considered, because that will make them finish first place in the group. Meanwhile, the DR Congo versus Uzbekistan. I think the DR Congo will get their first World Cup win in their history against Uzbekistan. They'll win 2-1. I'm not sure if that's gonna qualify them for the next round, but we have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Panama versus England. I think England will easily win this game. Let's say it will end 3-0. Meanwhile, Croatia versus Ghana. Croatia will win, but it won't be by a huge margin. I think it will end 2-1. And that is it for the group stage prediction. So now that I'm done with the group stage predictions, we're going to go through each group very quickly. Group A, Mexico tops it, Czechia second, South Africa third, Korea Republic fourth. Group B, we have Switzerland, Canada, Bosnia, and Qatar. Group C, Brazil, Morocco, Scotland, Haiti. Group D, Paraguay, United States, Turkey, and Australia. Group E, Ivory Coast, I have them top of the group. Germany are actually third place below Ecuador in my prediction. Meanwhile, Japan and the Netherlands will easily qualify out of Group F, and I think Sweden will have enough to make it to the next round. Group G, Belgium, Egypt, they should go through. Iran will probably get eliminated because of their goal difference. Spain and Uruguay go through. Saudi Arabia, Cape Verde eliminated. France, Senegal, and Norway, they should all make it through there. Argentina, Austria, and Algeria will make it through in Group J. Colombia, Portugal, and the DR Congo in Group K will qualify. And England, Croatia, Ghana will qualify out of Group L. Alright, so now we're going to talk about which teams go through in third place. As you can see right here, Germany, Bosnia, Algeria, Turkey, Norway, Sweden, the DR Congo, and Ghana will go through. Iran, Scotland, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia all eliminated. Now it's time to move on to the knockout stage. And the first game we have here is Ivory Coast versus Turkey. I can see this being a very exciting game. And I think they will go to penalties. I think it will end 2-2, and then Turkey will win on penalties. By the way, on this website, you can't change the results specifically during the knockout, so just ignore these results and just listen to what I say. I say this will end 2-2, and Turkey will win on penalties. Meanwhile, France versus Sweden. France will obviously win this game. I'll say they'll win 3-0 against Sweden. And Czechia versus Canada. I think Czechia could give Canada a lot of problems. And I can see the game going to extra time. And it'll end 0-0 in normal time. But I think Canada will get a goal in extra time to take them to the round of 16. It will end 1-0 for Canada. Meanwhile, Japan versus Morocco. This is a crazy matchup this early into the competition. Both of these teams could easily be dark horse candidates. But I'm gonna go with Morocco simply because I feel like Japan kind of have like a choke gene in there. They always seem to choke at these stages. They do well in the group stage, but then when they get to the knockout stage, they always blow it somehow. That always seems to happen, and I think it's gonna happen again. I'm gonna say Morocco will win 2-1 against Japan. Meanwhile, Portugal, Croatia. This is another huge game early on in the tournament, and I think it'll be a tough game. Croatia will give Portugal problems, but Portugal will win the game 1-0. Spain versus Austria. Austria are a good team, but I feel like Spain are on another level right now. It will be a very exciting game, though. I could see this ending 3-2. Both teams will go at each other, but Spain will just have too much quality. Paraguay versus Bosnia. I feel like both of these teams are kind of similar to each other, but I think Paraguay for knockout stage games they have a bit more. I feel like Paraguay's playstyle fits more for knockout stage games, and I think they'll narrowly win this game 1-0 against Bosnia. Now we have Belgium versus Norway. This will be an exciting game. I can see this going anywhere. Like anyone could win this game. I think it will end 2-2 and it'll go to penalties, but Norway will win on penalties. That's what I think will happen. Now we go on the other side of the round of 32 games. Brazil versus Netherlands. This is another insane game early on in the World Cup. And Brazil, I feel like they've been a little bit better with Carlo Ancelotti, and I feel like that will help them to get past the Netherlands. I just don't rate the Netherlands that highly, in all honesty. So I'm gonna say Brazil will win. I say they'll win 3-1. And Ecuador versus Senegal. This game would be very interesting. There will be a lot of tension in this game due to the fact that 4 years ago it was Senegal that eliminated Senegal. I mean, it was Senegal that eliminated Ecuador from the World Cup. So I think Ecuador are gonna go out for revenge. I could see this game ending 1-1, but Ecuador winning on penalties. Mexico versus Germany. This German team does not convince me. And I think Mexico, if they finish top of the group, their knockout stage game is actually in the Estadio Azteca. And I feel like that's going to play a huge advantage in Mexico's favor. So I'm going to go with a shock win here for Mexico. I'm going to say they win 2-1. And England versus the DR Congo. The DR Congo could cause problems to England, but in the end, England will get through. I think they'll win 2-0. Argentina versus Uruguay. This will be an insane game, a huge rivalry. It will definitely be a game with more fights and tackles than memorable actions, I'm sure. And I think it will be very intense, and Argentina will win this game 2-1. Meanwhile, the United States will face Egypt. And here, I think United States will get the job done. They will beat Egypt. I'll say a 2-0 scoreline. Switzerland versus Algeria. I feel like so far I haven't really predicted in favor of the African teams yet. So there has to be a shock eventually, and this could be one of the shocks from Africa. I feel like Algeria had the potential to have a really good run in this World Cup. So I'll say they'll beat Switzerland, and it'll be an exciting game. It will end 3-2. And Colombia versus Ghana. This will be an interesting game because it will be Colombia facing off against their old manager Queiroz. I think Colombia will win this game by the bare minimum 1-0. So now we go back to the round of 16 on pathway 1. Turkey versus France. I think Turkey can definitely give France some problems. But France, like I've said many times, I feel like they're on another level. But it will be a very exciting game. I would say it will end 3-2 in France's favor. Canada versus Morocco. This will be an interesting game. It's a repeat of a game that happened in the last World Cup in the group stage. And Canada, I think they will have the home advantage, but Morocco, I think they're just too good of a team, especially against Canada. And I think they'll win this game 2-0. Portugal versus Spain. Now, Spain is everyone's World Cup favorite, and I don't disagree with that take. I think for sure Spain deserve that title of being World Cup favorites. They've shown why they deserve that title at the Euros. But I just have a feeling that Portugal, like I said earlier, they grow into tournaments. They're gonna have a slow start to the tournament, but as the games go on, they'll get stronger and stronger. And I feel like this is a game that's gonna lift the confidence up of the Portuguese team. And I'm gonna say Portugal will win this game. They'll win this game 3-2. And now Paraguay versus Norway. This will be an interesting game. I can see the game going to penalties as well. I'm not gonna lie. But if it goes to penalties, I'm not sure who would win. It will be very 50-50. But I'm gonna say that Norway will win simply because I feel like Paraguay they don't have a good enough goalkeeper for a penalty shootout. So I'll say the game ends 1-1 and Norway will win on penalties. Now we go to the other side of the bracket of the round of 16. Brazil versus Ecuador, an all South American clash. Now Ecuador were much better than Brazil in the World Cup qualifiers, but that doesn't mean always that they're gonna have a better World Cup. Especially since it feels like these types of smaller national teams historically, whenever they see Brazil, they always get scared. Even if they are playing better than Brazil, it's just something like a mental thing. This always happens with Colombia too. I can see it happening to Ecuador. It'll be a very narrow game, but I think Brazil will win 1-0 against Ecuador. Meanwhile, Mexico versus England. And I think Mexico will have the home advantage again in the high altitude, and England could really struggle in that game. But I don't know. I don't know if I can see Mexico going to quarterfinals. It would be interesting if they can, but against England, I'm just not sure. If it was any other team, that I think for sure Mexico could actually make the quarterfinals. But even though England have their inconsistency, I think they just have too much quality. I'll say England will win 2-1 in extra time. They'll go past the 90 minutes, but England will win 2-1 in extra time. Now Argentina versus the United States. I think this will end in an easy win for Argentina. They'll probably get past the United States defense quite easily because that defense is not good in all honesty. And yeah, the United States they'll try. They'll probably score a goal, but Argentina will win 3-1. Now Algeria versus Colombia. This will be a very intense game, and I could see this game going any way. I could see Colombia. I don't know, like making a mistake at some point. But I think it will end 1-1 in 90 minutes, and Colombia will win an extra time 2-1. I think that's what will happen. So now we go back to pathway one, the first quarterfinal game, France versus Morocco. This is a repeat of the 2026 World Cup semifinals, and I think it will be a very intense game. I think both teams are going to go at each other. I think this game is going to have the most goals at this World Cup. I think France will win, but it will be an intense game. It will end 4-3 in France's favor. Meanwhile, Portugal versus Norway. Even though Norway, they have Holland, they have good players. I think this will be the end of the road for them. And I think Portugal, they just have more experience than Norway in these types of tournaments. And I think they'll win 2-0. Now we have Brazil versus England. The thing with Brazil and England, both teams don't really convince me. I don't know who could actually win this game. It's a very tough choice, but I have a weird feeling that Brazil are just gonna have a good World Cup. Everyone is doubting Brazil, but I have a weird feeling that they're just gonna wake up right when it's time to make it far at this tournament. And I feel like the climate is gonna help them out as well against England, especially. And England, they would, in my prediction, they went an extra time in the high altitude, so they'll probably be extra tired for this game. I'll say Brazil will win that game 2-1. Meanwhile, Argentina, Colombia, I would love it if Colombia somehow won this game, but unfortunately, I think Argentina they kind of have our number for now. I think it would be a close game, but I think Argentina will win 1-0. So now the semifinal, we have France versus Portugal, and yeah, this is an insane game to predict because for me, France are the best team in this World Cup. In my opinion, they're the most stacked team. They have an insane attack, an insane defense. I don't think their midfield is that bad, honestly. A lot of people have been criticizing it, but it's not that bad. It's not probably not the best in the world, but it does the job. It's decent enough. Meanwhile, Portugal, kind of the opposite of France. They have an insane midfield. Their midfield is elite, but they're kind of lacking a little bit in the attack and in the defense. But I feel like Portugal, they're gonna give it their all because it's Ronaldo's last dance, and I think Portugal will actually win this game. It'll be very close though. It'll probably end 2-1 to Portugal. Meanwhile, on the other semifinal bracket, Brazil versus Argentina, that would be an insane game. A huge rivalry, probably the biggest rivalry in international football. And I just don't know what to expect here. It could go either way. I have a feeling this game could go to extra time. And I think Brazil might win in extra time. They'll win. They'll win 3-2 against Argentina. It will be an insane game. So now we're in the final part. The third place game between France and Argentina. I feel like France might take this game less seriously because I think in general, I feel like European teams don't take the third place game as seriously as teams from other continents. I mean, unless you're Croatia, because Croatia last time got third place, but that's a different case because Croatia are a much smaller nation. But a nation like France, they want to win the World Cup. They don't care about a third place game. Meanwhile, Argentina, they might actually be happy with a third place medal, all things considered. So I think they'll go more at this game than France would. And as a result, Argentina will win this game 2-0, in my opinion. But now the World Cup final between Portugal and Brazil. And I just see this being the happy ending for Ronaldo. I don't know why, but I just think that this is going to be the World Cup where Ronaldo is going to have his happy ending. He's going to win the World Cup finally. Maybe Portugal might get some referee decisions go in their favor, kind of like Argentina in the last World Cup, because for the storyline, everyone wants to see Ronaldo win the World Cup. But on the other side, Brazil, they will also be Neymar's last World Cups, so there's also a storyline there. It would be an insane game. Both teams are Portuguese-speaking countries, so I feel like there is a bit of a rivalry there, and I can see both teams going at each other. It'll be similar to the last World Cup final, but I don't think this time it'll go to penalties. I think Portugal will win this game 3-2. So that was my full World Cup predictions for 2026. Let me know in the comments what you think of my predictions. Do you agree with my predictions? Are there any things that you would change in specific? Um, and always be respectful in the comments. Let me know how I did in my first video. Let me know if the audio is good. Give me constructive criticism. And make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share either the video or the channel to people that you know so that I can reach a wider audience. And take care, y'all.